The kid is 30 feet away from me, walking at a normal pace, and my laser says he is 480 feet down the hall. By the end of this, you'll understand why I now count my steps in my own house, and why the number keeps changing. There's a stamp on a set of blueprints from 1987 that told me everything I needed to know about that building, and I didn't understand the warning until the night it took something from me. I measure buildings for a living, and until 3 weeks ago, no building had ever measured back. The job is called as-built surveying, and nobody outside the trade has ever heard of it. Before a county tears a building down, somebody has to walk through it and produce a drawing of what's actually there. Not what the old blueprints claim, but what got built, with every remodel and every moved wall and every sin some contractor committed in 1994. That somebody is me. I show up with a laser rangefinder, a tablet and a thermos, usually at night because the power's already cut and it doesn't matter, and I shoot distances wall to wall until the drawing closes. 20 years of it. You want to know the truth about buildings? They're honest. Wood rots honestly. Steel rusts honestly. A building has never once lied to me about what it was. 3 weeks ago, the county sent me to a place called Meridian Park. 3 office buildings off the interstate, put up in 1987. The kind of brown glass suburban complex that used to hold an insurance company and a dental plan administrator and 100 other jobs nobody dreams about. Last tenant left in 2019. Demolition scheduled for this fall. The county wanted as-builts on all 3 buildings for the abatement crews, and they wanted them in 2 weeks, so for the first time in years they send me help. A kid named Dominic, 24 years old, first year in the trade, all questions. I liked him immediately, which I want on the record, because of what I have to tell you later. Buildings A and B took 3 nights and behaved themselves. Suites, corridors, stairwells, a machine room, the numbers closing the way numbers close. Then we started Building C. Building C's main corridor runs the length of the building, lobby to loading dock. I shot it from the lobby end, 12 feet, 4 inches, and I stood there looking at the readout for a long moment, because earlier that same evening I had shot the outside of the building, wall to wall, and the outside of the building is 188 feet, 0 inches. You see the problem? That's not a code violation, that's not a remodel, that's not a contractor's sin. There is no version of construction where the inside of a thing is 24 feet bigger than the outside of it. So I did what you do. I blamed the instrument, swapped batteries, reshot, 213 feet, 1 inch. Shot it with Dominic's unit, a different brand, 214 feet, 8 inches. Worse, not better. And somewhere in that half hour the air down the corridor had gone thick and faintly damp, the smell of carpet that's been wet a long time in a building with no plumbing anywhere near it. 2 instruments, 2 operators, the same wrongness, like the hallway was. I'm going to say this the way I said it to Dominic that night, standing in the lobby with both lasers in our hands, like the hallway was rising, the way bread rises. Slow, and everywhere, and only when you're not watching the middle of it. Dominic thought it was funny. He was 24. He put his laser on the floor in the middle of that corridor, parked the dot on the far wall, and said we'll catch it moving, like it was a game. And we stood there in the dark with our headlamps off, watching a green readout hold at 96 feet, 3 inches. It held for 4 minutes. Then it read 96 feet, 1 inch. Then 95 feet, 9 inches. The dot never moved. The wall never moved. Nothing in that hallway moved, I will swear that in any room you put me in. And the distance between the laser and the wall got 6 inches shorter while we watched. Something down there was closer than it had been. That's all the number means. I turned my headlamp back on so fast I cracked the lens against my helmet. Here's the detail I want you to keep, because everything that happened after runs through it. The next morning I pulled the original 1987 drawings from the county archive. Every architectural sheet for Building C, original issue, and both remodel revisions, 1994 and 2003. 3 different drafters across 16 years, has the same red stamp over the main corridor. 2 words, field verify. That's drafting language for I couldn't make the numbers work. Go measure it yourself. 3 drafters, 16 years apart. None of them ever got the same corridor twice, and every one of them quietly stamped at somebody else's problem and moved on with their lives. I understand them completely. I was 2 nights from doing the same thing. The 5th night is when the rooms started repeating. By then the air in Building C carried a smell that followed me home even after I'd showered it off. Carpet gone damp somewhere I never found the source of. And under it a fluorescent hum that never fully stopped, not even in the wings where every ballast had been dead since 2019. Suite 2116 is a corner office suite, reception, 2 offices, a break room with a water stain on the ceiling shaped like a hand missing its thumb, 1 chair left behind, a dried out pen on the windowsill. I measured it, drew it, moved on. An hour later and 60 feet down a different corridor, I walked into Suite 2140. Reception, 2 offices, break room, water stain shaped like a hand missing its thumb, 1 chair, a dried out pen on the windowsill, the same brand, lying at the same angle. I shot every wall in that suite, and every dimension matched 2116 to the quarter inch. Not similar. Not a copy-paste floor plan from a lazy architect. The same room, twice, wearing 2 different numbers on its doors. And when I stood in the second one, I had the very specific feeling that the room knew I'd noticed. The way you feel it in your back when a stranger stops pretending not to look at you. I didn't say anything to Dominic about the feeling. I said plenty about the dimensions. He stopped thinking it was funny somewhere around the 3rd matching wall, and that night in the parking lot he asked me, very casually, in the voice young guys use when they need the answer to be no, "Cal, you ever hear of the Backrooms, those videos online?" And I told him the truth, which is that I'm 47 and I measure buildings, and I don't watch videos about buildings, because that would be like a dentist watching videos about teeth. I've thought about that conversation every night since. He knew what it was before I did. He walked in anyway. That's the part 1 done do. The 6th night, my own tablet turned on me. I want to be careful here, because this is the part where people decide I'm lying, and all I can do is describe it. My CAD file, the as-built drawing I'd been building of that floor all week, my own layers, my own line weights, 20 years of habits in every corner of it, had rooms in it I never drew, 11 of them. Off the east end of the main corridor, drawn in my style, on my layer, time-stamped between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock that same morning, which was an hour I'd spent measuring a stairwell 2 floors up with Dominic 6 feet away from me the entire time. 11 rooms, in my drawing, in my hand, extending in a neat row past the outer wall of Building C, out into what, on the survey, on the aerial photo, in the real and measurable world, is an empty parking lot. The building had told my drawing what it wanted to be, or what it already was, on the side of the wall I hadn't shot yet. I still don't know which of those 2 sentences is the true one, and I no longer believe I'd be better off knowing. If this one's already under your skin, do me a favor and subscribe. There's a new story here every night, and I need you to hear how this one ends. The 7th night was supposed to be our last in Building C. 1 corridor left to close, the long one, the 212-foot corridor that was 188 feet of building. You cannot hand the county a drawing where the hallway pokes out through the wall like a nail through a shoe. So I decided we'd shoot it in sections with a reflector target, nail it down piece by piece, and be done. Dominic took the target. I stayed at the lobby end with the laser. The rule was simple. He walks 20 feet, sets the target, I shoot. He walks 20 more. First target, 20 feet, 2 inches, fine. Second, 41 feet even. Third, 62 feet. And then I looked up from the readout to watch him set the 4th. And this is the image I will be carrying into whatever years I have left. Dominic, in his orange vest, 30 feet in front of me. By the count of his own steps, he should have been 80 feet out. He was 30, close enough to hit with a thrown glove, walking away at the ordinary pace of a tired kid at 2 in the morning. And the readout in my hand, Liv, tracking the reflector on his back, said 212 feet, then 300, then 480. The number was pouring upward like a gas pump, faster than a man could run, while the man it was measuring strolled 30 feet away from me down a hallway that my own eyes swore was ordinary. The hallway was lying to one of us, and I knew, the way you know which floorboard is bad in your own house, that it wasn't lying to the laser. I yelled his name, he didn't turn, not ignoring me. The sound just wasn't reaching him, the way a shout doesn't reach across a valley, because whatever the space between us actually was by then, it was not 30 feet. He kept walking at that easy pace, getting very slightly smaller with every step, far too slowly for the distance the laser said he was covering. And then he turned, left, mid-corridor, through a doorway that is not on the 1987 drawings, not on the 1994 revision, not on the 2003 revision, and not on mine. There is no left there. I have shot that wall. It's a demising wall backed by 8 inches of block. There is no left. He turned left anyway, easy as walking into a kitchen, and the corridor was empty, and the readout in my hand said 1,204 feet and was still climbing when I dropped it. His radio was still transmitting. That's the thing I can't get out from under. The channel stayed open for 6 more minutes while I stood in that lobby, screaming his name into my handset, and what came back the whole 6 minutes was a hum. Fluorescent hum, that flat 60-cycle drone every office you've ever waited in has poured into your ears, except Building C has had no power since 2019, and the hum on that channel was coming from somewhere with all its lights on. And then, at the end of it, one transmission, Dominic's voice. Not scared. That was the worst thing about it. A calm, mild, far-away voice, like a man commenting on weather, saying, "The carpet's wet down here." Then the channel closed, and it has never opened again. I did go in after him. I want that known, whatever else you decide about me. I walked that corridor calling his name until my throat quit. And it was 188 honest feet of empty building the whole way. Every door where the drawings put it. The demising wall solid block from lobby to loading dock. No left turn, no yellow light, nothing. The corridor ended at the dock door, like corridors are supposed to end. The building was wearing its real face again. Buildings are honest. That's what 20 years taught me. What 20 years never told me is that a thing can be honest with you right up until it's hungry. The county lists Dominic as a walk-off. Left mid-shift, personal reasons. His truck was still in the lot, so somebody must have picked him up. His mother has called me 4 times. I answer every one, and I lie. Because the truth is a corridor that's longer than its building, and you can't hand a mother that. They're demolishing Building C on schedule this fall. I've thought about what happens when the wrecking ball meets a structure that has more inside than outside. Whether the extra just goes wherever surplus space goes, or whether knocking down the shell of a thing does nothing at all to the part of it that was never inside the shell to begin with. The abatement crew will use my drawing. I closed the corridor at 188 feet, stamped it, and said nothing. Field verify. I understand those 3 drafters now all the way to the bottom. You close the number, you sign your name, and you get to keep the version of the world where the numbers close. Except I don't get to keep it. Because 2 weeks ago, at the top of my stairs at 2 in the morning, I noticed my hallway. I have lived in that house 19 years. It is 14 steps from my bedroom door to the bathroom. 14 steps in the dark, 10,000 nights in a row. That night I counted 17. Last night I counted 31. 31 steps, wet carpet under my feet from about step 20 on. And we have hardwood. And a humming starting up somewhere behind the walls, patient and fluorescent and wrong, in a house where I could hear the refrigerator stop. I never reached the bathroom. I turned around, and it was 4 steps back to my bedroom door, and I shut it and stood against it until the sun came up. This morning I set my laser on the nightstand, aimed it at the bedroom door, and parked the dot there. It reads 11 feet, 2 inches, which is right, which is what it's always been. It read 11 feet, 4 inches an hour ago. If this story is going to follow you to bed, subscribe. There's a new one every night, and if mine stops coming, now you know what the number was doing when it took me.